Good evening, everybody. Today my presentation is called Unmeasurably Measurable, because lighting, it has two aspects to it. One is the measurable aspect, lux levels, energy, so on. And the other is the unmeasurable aspect, which is really essential. It gives, which my sense of comfort, I can't really measure it. Like sir showed, Dr. Garg had showed images of Puducherry. I can't really imagine how safe people feel after a well-lit lane is there. He said, Piccadilly Circus, it's happening. I can't make it, I can't quantify how it's happening, but I can definitely feel it. I can't measure it though. So lighting comes from natural sources. Artificial lighting has evolved over the years since the time Edison had introduced it to LEDs and induction lights that we are talking today. So my presentation would really focus on how we convince the corporates to go for energy efficient lighting, because lighting firstly brings down my direct energy load. Secondly, it affects my cooling load very positively. We'll show it through a case study. However, when I talk about artificial lighting and an energy efficient building, it's very essential I keep in mind the natural lighting, which can be tapped through light shells, skylights, sawtooths, etc. Artificial lights, it's basically done to do a job. Secondly, to highlight the architectural ethics of the building, and so on. So the unmeasurable aspect of lighting, it gives me the perception of environment, gives me a sense of well-being. The third dimension of lighting, which is called the biological effect, is what we talk about. It affects my efficiency at work. So there's a study at University of Washington which highlights that if I have an appropriate uniformity in my building, if I have a UGI of around 22, if I have a daylight glare index of 90, my efficiency goes up by 20%. So if I talk about a huge corporate, say Infosys, which has lakhs of employees, and if I manage to increase the efficiency by 20-25%, I've done my energy recovery, I've done my payback. It gives me the sense of safety and the visual comfort sitting in the building. So energies, as Dr. Jain said, green buildings are growing at a tremendous rate. Today we have 2 billion square feet which has already been registered, and it has been found out that almost 25% of the total energy consumed by the building is through energies. So when we go on board, when we talk about lighting design, we talk about the lighting output, light efficiency, illuminance, color temperature, CRI. So an efficient lighting system is not only which is energy efficient, but which is visually energy efficient. So now this is a case study. Before I integrate the ideal lighting system into my building, it is very essential for me to understand how T8s, T5s, CFLs, LEDs actually behave within the building and how they affect the overall energy load. So I have a 10,000 square feet building here which has a very conventional lighting design which was done a decade back. One T8 on every workstation. So when I have a fluorescent system, two 26 watt T8s, I have 45 fixtures in all, with an LPD of 25.82, which is huge. Further, if I see the energy consumption of my building here, very high. HVAC load almost 30%. Further, what I do is, I replace these T8s with simple T5s. My LPD comes down to 15.36 watts per square feet. I have a better uniformity within my building, irrespective it's on the walls, ceiling, work plane. Now what I do is, I had these ceiling mounted T5s, now I have ceiling suspended T5s. even though my LPD comes down very marginally, however, I get better uniformity within my room. Again, better uniformity means better efficiency of my occupants. Moving further, what I do is now I optimize the lighting design. I rechange what all my fixtures were, the location of my fixtures. I've reduced it from 45 to 24, which is almost 50%. So now, again, I check out how my T5s are performing in my optimized lighting design. My LPD has come down from 15 watts per square feet to only 8.19 watts per square feet. I have the same uniformity within my room. If you see this, the image which is on the top, that's showing me what's the uniformity within my room, and I see almost it's the same color all throughout. This is how the rendered image would come through. Similarly, now I replace my T5s with the 100% downward throw. My again LPD comes down by almost 10% to 7.86 watts per square feet. Moving further, again now what we've done is just to minimize the glare within my building, I've used T5s again, but with a majorly upward throw. My LPD goes up, however my cooling load comes down because the direct heat coming on my workstations within my ambient air is minimal. Moving forward, I talk about LEDs. LEDs have reduced my LPD to 5.86 watt per square feet. So if I just quickly take you back from where I started, 45 fixtures and LPD of 24. Now I've reduced it to 24 fixtures with an LPD of just 5.86 watts per square feet, which is required in the industry. Integrating LEDs and replacing them with T8s, I get a way better uniformity within my workstation area, and I get a 500 lux on my workstations areas and not on my ambient lighting areas, not on my corridors, which is really not required. So this is the image I get with the LEDs. If you can see, it's majorly uniform, and I can see a better lighting, I can see better lux on my workstation areas, on my tables, which is required actually. When I integrate ambient lighting and task lighting to these, I've again reduced my LPD just to 4.45. So we started from 24.4 watts per square meter, and we've reduced it to 4.45 watts per square meter. So I did my research. Now I go to my client and I'll just take it up through a case study, which is a 1 lakh square feet building located in Delhi. Again, a conventional building. So the need of the hour is not to produce more energies, but to construct buildings, to design buildings which are energy plus, which produce more electricity than they're actually consuming. So one solution is I just invest in green power, so that whatever energy I'm consuming, I nullify through the green power investments I've made. And the second option is I bring down my energy consumption considerably. I bring it really down, almost by 50-60%, and then I can use my minimal roof space that I have in the city buildings today just to integrate a photovoltaic system. So if I talk about my conventional building, my cooling load is 530 TR and my carbon emissions are 1680 tons per year. So firstly what I do is I optimize my building envelope. I just make it consistent with the ECBC building envelope. I've reduced my EPI to 181 watts per square feet per year. My cooling load has come down from 560 to 365 TR, and my carbon emissions have reduced almost by 5% to 1467 tons per year. Now I work with the architect. How can I integrate daylighting into my system? Firstly, I don't wish to use artificial lighting during the daytime. So for that, what we propose is a smart daylighting system in which we have reflectors which act as my shading devices. They collect the energy and transmit it through the optical fibers that I just spread throughout the ceiling of my building. So these are a few images of the inside. If you see the second row, It's giving me a very good UGR, which is between the range of 22 to 24, and 77.94 of my building is daylit with more than 300 lux. Again, if I optimize my daylighting, I've reduced my EPI. If you see, my EPI is going a little up. From 181, it's gone up to 182, because when I talk about daylighting, slight increase on my HVAC load goes up because of the heat gains through conduction and radiation. Now, the design that I'd optimized of 4.7 watts per square feet is what I integrate into my building. I get a uniformity exactly how we need it, between the range of 0.4 to 0.3. My HVAC load comes from 530 TR just to 300 TR. So we have not done anything as yet. We've not worked on our equipment. Just with the envelope and with the artificial lighting, we've reduced our overall cooling load by 300 TR. So reduction in cooling load does not only mean savings in energy, it also means a 40% reduction in the HVAC equipment of the building, which is one of the most expensive services when I talk about. So if I individually talk about my lighting systems, yes, LED might be slightly expensive. But when I talk about the overall building, when I talk about the overall package, my investment budget, it's not really expensive. I've bought down my investments with smart lighting. On integrating my daylight sensors to the building, I've brought down my EPI to 115. From 215, it's to 115. My HVAC load is almost half to 285 TR, and my CO2 emissions have reduced almost by 40% to just 937 tons per year. So we've come down from a 4-digit CO2 emissions to a merely 3-digit CO2 emissions. So it's so simple. A lot of times we go, we meet hoteliers, we meet industrial setups, we meet corporates, Infosys, just to name, and they're like, isn't energy efficient buildings really complicated? But if I just see these simple 5 steps, I don't really call it complicated, I just call it smart application. So just to quickly take you through, I've brought down my EPI from 207 kilowatts per square feet per year to just 115. I've reduced my I've reduced my cooling load from 530 TR just to 285 TR. So that's just the graph that we worked upon, just with 5 simple steps. I haven't optimized my HVAC equipment as yet. I have not really integrated a lot of installations or anything. So just to conclude, my question is, how do we wish to see the world? How do we wish to design the lighting today? Do we design it to light today, or do we adopt smart lighting to adopt tomorrow? Thank you.
Any questions? Can you refer any Indian projects?
Okay, if I just quickly do that, I'll take an example of one of my buildings that we're recently working on, and we've done smart lighting there. It's called Infosys SDB 10 Pune. So it's a Pune campus, 350,000 square feet building, 4,000 occupants. So when we started with the ASHRAE 90.1 base case of an LPD of 1 watt per square feet. We had CFLs, no use of T5s, only T8s. We did not use any artificial lighting on the perimeters of the building during daytime, and we reduced our LPD almost to 0.4 watts per square feet. So straight away reduced my direct energy consumption when it comes to lighting by 60%. And then if I see my HVAC load of such a huge building was barely 400 TR. So as I started, that if I see the overall package, it's not expensive, it's cheaper. But if I individually talk about lighting, yes, LEDs might prove to be a little expensive. Sure, we have one of the buildings at Noida. It's an eco-commercial building, and it's the first net zero energy building in India. So we can definitely do that at your convenience, sir. It's by Bryce Road, and it's an eco-commercial building. But it's a small building, 10,000 square feet, 70 occupants. But that building, we've had the annual data for that building, and it's actually producing more electricity than it's consuming. So instead of taking from the grid, it's giving away to the grid, which I think the corporates need to do today.
Is the NCR grid?
It's not metered as yet. I think it's just metered in Tamil Nadu, but still, the PV was integrated, keeping the peak demand in mind, but we haven't really gone up till there, so we are able to produce more.
What's the status of this policy about battery?
It's still coming up. There was a conference 2 weeks back at Greater Noida Expo Center, so I think they're still contemplating, and with Modi we hope achhe din aayenge.
We all waiting.
Thanks.